Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the 19th problem in the Leetcode sort of problems. And this is going to be removing the nth node from the end. And so if we look at this linked list right here, if we want to remove the second node from the end, we can go 1, 2, and then that means we want to return our 4, or we want to delete our 4. And so this returns a 1, 2, 3, and 5. And so that is basically, and say right here, n will always be valid. So that's good. And that's basically just, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you guys want, definitely pause the video and try it on your own. But if you guys have any trouble, come back and we'll work through it together. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working through it. So the first thing we need to do is find the length of our linked list so that we know kind of how long we are and where we need to delete. And so what I'm going to say is I'm going to create a variable called length and make it equal to 0. If I can type in a 0. And then I'm going to say cur is equal to our head. And so what this is going to do is we're going to loop through our cur and loop through our linked list and until we get to our none, because this is a single linked list, our last node will point to none. Once until we get to none, we're just going to keep incrementing our length. And so while cur length plus equals 1, cur is equal to our cur dot next. So this is getting the length. And now what we want to do is we want to keep decrementing our length until we make it equal to n. So what that means is that if we're looking at this first node, our length is 5 and 5 is greater than 2. And so we want to decrement our length and move our cur 2 over. Over here, length is equal to 4, so we want to decrement our length and move over. Length is equal to 3, decrement, move over. Length is equal to 2, so it's not less than the parameter that was passed, which is 2. And so now we know this is the node that we want to delete. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping track of our previous node so that we can tell our previous node what to do if that's the case that we have to handle for. Because either what can happen is this is a more normal case where there's a node afterwards also, so we can just say our prev should point to the node after. If the 5 is the node we want to delete, then we'll say that our prev should point to none. And then if we want to delete the very first node, we can just return our head dot next, because that's just going to be returning the rest of our list and not including our head node. And so hopefully that makes sense. I think it'll make a little more sense when we start coding it up. And so I'm going to say the first thing I'm going to do is say cur2 is equal to head so that we use another variable. I'm going to say while length is not equal to n, I'll have to make my prev variable. Prev is equal to none. While length is not equal to n, remember we want to decrement and move over. And so I'm going to say prev is equal to cur2 so that we keep track of our prev variable. Cur2, move our cur2 over. And so one thing to note is that, not cur next, cur2 dot next. One thing to note is that when we move our prev over, then we move our cur2 over. And so in the next iteration, if we need to decrement again, our prev will move over and then our cur2 will move over one more. And so we're kind of moving our prev and cur2 over at the same pace. And so then we want to make sure we decrement our length. And so this is going to get us to a point where, say in this case, our length is equal to our n. And now we have the different cases we want to handle for. If our cur2 is equal to our head, so the head node is the one we want to delete, we'll just return our head dot next. Elif. The way we know that we're on the very last node is because our last node points to none. And so if there is not a cur2 dot next, we can just say that our prev dot next is equal to none. And else, the very last case is that this case where we do have something that we want to point to afterwards. Instead of pointing to none, we want it to point to another node. We can say our next is equal to our cur dot next, not cur2 dot next, and then we'll say our prev dot next is equal to our next variable, or our nxt variable, and at the very end just return our head. And so we don't have to worry about this because we return our head dot next as needed, and in both of these cases we would return our head no matter what, because we're not dealing with our head node, we're dealing with something after that. So we can just return our head in that case. And so this is how we can handle for removing the nth node from the end. Let's type it into our Leetcode editor, and hopefully it'll work. And so length is equal to 0, cur is equal to head, while cur length plus equals to 1, cur is equal to cur dot next. We'll also say that our pre is equal to none, cur2 is equal to our head, while length is not equal to n, pre is equal to cur2 is equal to cur2 dot next, length minus equals 1. This is really important because if you don't do this, it'll just go on an endless loop, and you're going to get to a point where you're going to get to the end of the list and it's going to still try to move to the next node, which is impossible. And so it's important to decrease our count. And so once we get to the node that we want to delete, if cur2 is equal to head, we said cur2 every time, right? Yeah, just to make sure. Return head dot next. If not cur2 dot next. Our prev dot next is equal to none. Else our nxt is equal to cur dot next, and our prev dot next will point to that nxt variable, and then we'll return our head. So the first node is this, and so if we run our code, hopefully this will return or remove the second node from the end. It does, or not the second node, the first node from the end. We'll replace that with the 2, so that deletes the second node from the end. We have a runtime error because this should be cur2 dot next. I think I said cur2, yeah, we said cur2 dot next there. Return that we deleted the 4. We know our length is 5, so we'll remove our 5 node, or the 5th node from the end, which is our head. So that removes the head node and returns the rest of the list. I think that should be it. We'll hit submit, and hopefully it'll pass all of our Leetcode cases, and it does. And as you can see, it works. This is how we can code up our removing nth node from the end function in Python. Hopefully this helps you guys, and see you guys next time. All right, later.